Chocolate has had an interesting history. It's gone from sacrificial elixir of the gods in Mesoamerica to unhealthy candy bars in Europe to being considered a superfood in the 21st century, and then more recently being considered a potentially toxic heavy metal containing substance that we should be wary of. So today we are in Mexico, one of the birthplaces of chocolate, and we are going to get to the bottom of all of this, the health, the history, more than you have ever wanted to know, all about chocolate. Hey guys, it's Robin and welcome back to the Science of Self-Care. On this channel we talk about health science, we talk about life philosophy, and we do a whole lot of self-care experimentation. I am so excited about today's topic because I have always been a chocolate lover since birth. My 23andMe actually says that I'm genetically predisposed to love chocolate, and I do eat it very often. So you can imagine how heartbroken I was when in 2022 Consumer Reports came out with an expose detailing how a lot of our favorite dark chocolate bars in Trader Joe's and Whole Foods contain high levels of lead and cadmium. So many people I know sent me this article. It was especially alarming for me because I was definitely eating more than a typical serving size of dark chocolate every single day. Growing up, I always considered chocolate a very healthy food. It's rich in antioxidants, polyphenols, it's rich in vitamin C, calcium, iron. It contains many healthy fats, it's low glycemic, it's a great snack on the go, and there's a lot of studies that show a correlation between cocoa consumption and an increased lifespan. So for all of these reasons, I never really monitored my consumption of chocolate. I just thought the more the merrier. But after this article, I decided to do a lot more research on where chocolate comes from, heavy metals in our foods, and generally how to safely consume it because I did not want to give up my favorite food. So if you're also a chocolate lover and you want to better understand how to incorporate chocolate into your diet in a health conscious manner, then this is definitely the video for you. Let's get started. I'd like to start off at the origins of chocolate. What is it? Where does it come from? So chocolate comes from a tree called Theobroma cacao, and this tree has oblong fruit pods that grow from its trunk, not from its branches, which is quite unique. And in each fruit pod is about 30 to 50 cacao beans along with some white fleshy pulp. Essentially how chocolate is made is these beans are fermented, they're roasted, they're ground, and turned into chocolate as we know it. If you've ever seen cacao nibs in your grocery store, those are essentially little chopped up pieces of cacao bean. And if you've ever tasted cacao nibs, then you will also understand how bitter cacao is when it doesn't have a bunch of sugar and milk added in. This bitterness is partly caused by two compounds, caffeine and theobromine. In addition to making cacao bitter, these two compounds also make it pretty addictive. I'm sure everyone knows how addictive caffeine can be. I mean, anyone who's ever had coffee will understand the addiction is real. But chocolate doesn't contain nearly as much caffeine as a cup of coffee. It contains about 20 milligrams per 100 grams of raw cacao, which is moderate, but if you're sensitive to caffeine, you'll definitely feel a kick. Theobromine is another alkaloid compound that also gives you a little bit of a feel-good buzz when you consume it. And cocoa is actually the primary natural source of theobromine. For every 100 grams of raw cacao, you're gonna get about 2,000 milligrams of theobromine, which to me, it makes a lot of sense how I am addicted to chocolate because there's just so much of this amazing feel-good compound in chocolate. Theobromine is also what makes chocolate toxic to dogs. So if you do have dogs, you probably know you shouldn't be giving your dogs chocolate. The first human civilization thought to consume cacao are the Mayan people, and researchers believe they would add crushed little pieces of cacao beans to their porridge, just like you could imagine adding cocoa nibs to your oatmeal in this modern day and age. But they're also famously known for consuming cacao in a hot drink form. They were known to add chili, vanilla, cinnamon, and delicious spices to kind of make the bitterness more palatable. And this is one of my favorite ways to consume cacao. Because cacao beans are more than 50% fat, they crush down into really nice, luxurious, fatty pastes that are just so yummy and a great base for a drink or for a sauce like mole, or of course for chocolate bars. Because we are here in Mexico, we are gonna take a little field trip to the Chocolate Museum, Mucho Mundo Chocolate. This is the Chocolate Museum of Mexico City, and we are actually going to learn how chocolate is made and sample a little chocolate drink. So don't you worry, we will get to that. The Aztecs are also known to have consumed their chocolate in drink form, but they were thought to consume it in a cold drink form. Both the Mayan people and the Aztecs were also thought to use cacao as part of sacrificial ceremonies. So there are drawings depicting bloody blades basically dripping blood into cacao drinks. We will also investigate that part of chocolate's background at some Aztec and pre-Aztec ruins later in this video as well. Then in the 15th and 16th century, the Spanish came and they brought cacao to Europe, where people added milk and sugar and cream and really created confectionery bars. And I think that's how most people think of chocolate today. But let's circle back to this heavy metal issue. So essentially, Consumer Reports did a test where they tested 28 popular dark chocolate bars that many of us will see on our grocery store shelves. All 28 tested positive for lead and cadmium. I'd like to take a little moment here to acknowledge that many of the foods we consume contain heavy metals. For example, turmeric is known to be the kind of perfect anti-inflammatory food. Well, even turmeric has been found to be a source of lead in our diet. So all sorts of crops that we enjoy that we believe are very healthy, they often contain heavy metals, and that's not something to be super nervous about. I don't want this video to be a fear-mongering video, but it is something to be aware of, that we are consuming all sorts of heavy metals in our foods all the time. The difference here is that cacao has been ranked a little bit higher on certain heavy metals like lead and cadmium, although there are other crops that have also been shown to rank similarly or even higher. For example, sunflower seeds have been shown to have even higher levels of cadmium in certain tests than cacao. So just because a chocolate bar does contain lead and cadmium does not mean we cannot enjoy it and consume it. However, what Consumer Reports found was that only 5 of the 28 that they tested contained safe levels of lead and cadmium, and all other 23 bars had either too much lead to be considered safe, too much cadmium to be considered safe, or too much lead and cadmium. And this was really a wake-up call for me because there were a lot of bars on that list that I love. I used to consume so much Trader Joe's chocolate, but that did not seem to be scoring too well. But for me as a chocolate lover, I felt like 5 bars was not enough choice. So I did a little digging and I found this incredible resource. There's a great website that keeps track of lead and cadmium in common chocolate products. I will put the link down below. But what's notable while scrolling through this list is that just because a brand seems healthy, organic, and fair trade doesn't mean that it will score low on the heavy metals. And just because a brand like Hershey's may not typically be associated with health doesn't mean it won't have safe levels of lead and cadmium. So have a look at this list and find some chocolate options that work for you. If you are pregnant, breastfeeding, or giving chocolate to your children, I would be diligent about checking the heavy metal levels and maybe opting for options like milk chocolate or vegan milk chocolate that contain less cacao. Adults are less sensitive than developing children to these levels of lead and cadmium. After this Consumer Reports expose came out, there was also a 381-page safety report on how chocolate farmers, supply chain operators, distributors can ensure that their chocolate is lower in lead and cadmium. Basically, this report showed how we can actually avoid these high levels of lead and cadmium by tweaking our supply chain and how we process the beans. The cadmium actually comes into cacao through the soil, so if farmers and chocolate producers are more mindful of which soils they're growing their cacao in, then we can mitigate these cadmium levels. The lead issue turns out to be a little bit different. The lead contamination is actually happening later in the process when the beans are being handled, and after they've already been picked, there's dust and other pollutants that are coming in contact with the beans that contain lead. And the 381-page report basically details how farmers and chocolate producers can handle their beans to ensure minimal lead exposure. And now that companies and consumers are more aware that there is a heavy metal issue with chocolate, I believe we're gonna see a change in the marketplace. We're gonna see more brands coming out with heavy metal conscious chocolate bars and cacao powder, because in theory, cacao as a crop is incredibly healthy. It is just so rich in so many incredible compounds. And if we can avoid the contamination of this really healthy crop, then I think that's gonna be a huge selling point for a lot of consumers. I know that Brian Johnson the tech mogul turned biohacker. He's coming out with a line of a bunch of food items called Blueprint. That's his brand. And I know he's coming out with a cocoa. He is very adamant about consuming chocolate every day, but making sure the chocolate is undutched, high in polyphenols, and low in heavy metals. So I presume his chocolate is going to be an example of a heavy metal conscious chocolate that we're going to see on the market. So I am personally quite optimistic about the future of chocolate. In the meantime, have a look at the links down below to find some chocolate bars that are available at your grocery store that are safe in the lead and cadmium categories. And lastly, of course, I have been making sure that every day I am eating only a moderate amount of cocoa, whether that's in drink form, a little square of a bar, or a few cocoa nibs in my oatmeal. And if I've already had my serving for the day, then I can just enjoy my new serving for the next one. Quick little intermission chocolate break. I have not had my chocolate yet for today. Right now, I have this 72% Ghirardelli chocolate with me, which is one of the chocolates that's scored in the healthy ranges for lead and cadmium. Let's do a little taste test. Look at that beautiful square of 72%. Let's give it a little taste. This is a really nice chocolate. It's got a fruitiness to it, but it's got more of a berry fruitiness, not so much a citrusy fruitiness, if you know what I mean. I'm not a huge fan of chocolates that have a citrus undertone, but this one is more berry, and I like it. Getting my fix of theobromine and caffeine, feeling so good. Okay, one more bite. I'm rating this chocolate a 7.5 on taste. I've definitely had better chocolate bars, but it's pretty good. But I'm gonna add an extra point for the fact that it has a healthy range of lead and cadmium. So this is an 8.5 out of 10. Would definitely recommend picking it up if you see it at your local grocery store. But I think I've been blabbing way too long. I would love to go out and go on a little field trip. So here we are at Mundo de Chocolate, the chocolate museum of Mexico City. The museum told me that this chocolate comes from the state of Tabasco in Mexico, where 70% of the country's plantations are located. So if you've had Mexican chocolate, it's probably from Tabasco. All the chocolates from Tabasco that I've tried have been decently fruity, and if you are someone who likes that fruitiness to your chocolate, I think you'll really love Mexican chocolate. Cacao originated in Central and South America, and in the 19th century spread to other regions of the world where it's now grown, but it can actually only be grown between specific latitudes near the equator, which you can see here on this map. A super fun fact, to get a nice foam on top of their cacao drinks, the Aztecs would pour the cacao from really high, which would cause it to foam as it landed. So if you don't own a milk frother, just stand at the top of your stairs and pour your milk over the edge. Don't do that, actually. I really don't know why I love chocolate so much. Probably it's my genetic predisposition mixed with the addictive compounds in chocolate, but this museum just makes me so happy. I also think the actual cacao fruit is just such a beautiful pod. I don't know, am I crazy? Am I drugged by the theobromine? I think it's beautiful. So now we're actually gonna make some chocolate ourselves. We're gonna transform raw cacao nibs into a luxurious chocolate paste. So this stone grinder is called a metate, and it's how people have been creating chile, chocolate, and mole creations in Mexico for thousands of years. It's so special to be able to use one, and as you can imagine, it's a lot of work. I'm serious, guys, this is a workout. By stone grinding the nibs, we're releasing all the oils in the chocolate. Then we add a dash of sugar and some cinnamon. It's perfection. A metate and a metlapil is definitely one of the culinary secrets to what makes authentic Mexican cuisine and Mexican chocolate so delicious. Smells out. Niet geroosterd, denk ik. Of wel? Wel lekker. Muy rico.
Lo tengo.
But of course, I really came here for an authentic Mexican chocolate drink, which is traditionally whisked with a molenillo. So let's go get one of those. Delicious. Oh my goodness, this is so delicious. You can get it with chili as well for a little kick. It's just so warm and rich and just makes you happy. So while we're here in Mexico, I feel like we cannot pass up a trip to the pyramids of Teotihuacan. These pyramids were actually built by a pre-Aztec civilization, the Teotihuacanos, and then Aztecs came through after the pyramids were abandoned and gave them names like Pyramid of the Sun, Pyramid of the Moon. These are awesome structures when you see them in real life. They are just so big. There's evidence that many Mesoamerican civilizations use cacao in sacrificial ceremonies, so it's pretty wild to think that people may have been drinking cacao or cacao mixed with blood in these very spots. How many people were sacrificed here, their blood mixed with cacao? I read that Aztecs would consume their chocolate drinks cold, so I wanted to end this video combining some of the info we've learned on this chocolate journey. We're going to be making a cold chocolate drink made with low heavy metal Hershey's chocolate powder, according to the link in bio. Unfortunately, I don't have a molinillo, so I'm whisking with a knife. Taste test. Okay, complete honesty, this is not very good, especially compared to that amazing hot chocolate at Mucho. But it was really fun to go on this deep dive of chocolate. I hope you learned something interesting. I would love to know what your relationship to chocolate is like. Do you love it? Do you not really understand the hype? Do you eat it for health reasons or do you avoid it for health reasons? Let us know down below. I absolutely love the conversations we always have in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.